Today, we're diving into the Sermon of Fadak. Now, this is a story that kicks off with a fight over an orchard, but believe me, it quickly explodes into this high-stakes legal and theological battle, a clash over scripture and power that would literally help chart the course of history.
So it all boils down to this one pretty deceptive question. How on earth did a simple disagreement over a piece of land become such a massive, defining moment for an entire community? Well, that's the mystery we're going to unpack together. Okay, so picture this. We're in the moments right after the Prophet Muhammad's death. The entire political landscape is in flux. And right in the middle of all this uncertainty, this one plot of land, this orchard called Fadak, becomes the flashpoint for a huge confrontation. Now, to really get what's going on here, we have to understand Fadak's legal status. This is crucial. According to the sources, this land wasn't taken in war. It was given to the Prophet as part of a peaceful treaty, which made it his own personal property. He could do whatever he wanted with it. It was totally separate from the public treasury. So, after the Prophet passes away, his daughter Fatima suddenly finds she can't access Fadak anymore. Her first claim is really straightforward. Hey, that was a gift, a nikhla, that my father gave me. But the new leadership pushes back. They come forward with a tradition that says prophets don't leave behind material wealth. Whatever they have belongs to the community. So, when her first claim about the gift gets shot down, Fatima doesn't just give up. Not at all. Instead, she makes this absolutely brilliant tactical pivot. She decides to meet her opponents on their own turf, and in doing so, she elevates this whole dispute to a completely different level.
She essentially says, fine, let's go with your version. If you insist Fadak still belonged to my father when he died, then by law, I'm his heir. And with that one move, she forces the entire conversation to be about inheritance.
To back up her case, she starts citing the Quran directly. Her first piece of evidence is a game changer, a verse that explicitly says the Prophet Solomon inherited from his father, the Prophet David. Right there, she's established a clear precedent for prophets and inheritance. But she doesn't stop there. She then brings up another verse, this time from the story of the Prophet Zechariah. He's praying to God for an heir, someone who would inherit from him. Again and again, she's reinforcing this principle. Inheritance happens in prophetic families. And finally, she points to the universal law of inheritance in the Quran, a law that applies to every single believer. Her question becomes so powerful and so simple. Why would this divine law apply to literally everyone else's family, but not the family of the Prophet himself? And boom, just like that, the whole game has changed. This isn't about an orchard anymore. Now it's a fundamental debate about the very authority of the Quran. Can one single reported saying override multiple, crystal-clear verses of Scripture? So with the argument now centered on the faith's most sacred text, Fatima takes her case public. She walks into the Prophet's mosque, a place with immense symbolic power, to deliver a formal public address, right in front of the whole community and its new leadership. And let me tell you, this sermon was not just some emotional plea. It was a masterclass in logic and rhetoric. The sources lay out this clear, three-part structure. She starts with core theological principles, then she gives the sharp analysis of the community situation, and finally, she just systematically dismantles her opponent's arguments using the Quranic evidence we just looked at. At the very heart of her sermon, she unleashes this incredibly powerful, direct question. She turns to the leader in front of everybody and asks how it could possibly be that the Quran allows him to inherit from his father, but denies her the exact same right from her own father. You see what she did there? It's this inescapable trap. If the leaders say they didn't know about these verses, well, then they're too ignorant to lead. But if they say they did know about them and chose to ignore them, then they're being deliberately unjust. Either way, their legitimacy takes a massive hit. So, the sermon completely backed the leadership into a corner. And in response, the conflict changes yet again. It's no longer a legal debate. Now, it's a full-blown public relations campaign to redefine the role and the character of the Prophet's family, the al-Bayt. According to the sources, the leadership's main counterattack was to go after her motives. They tried to reframe her principled Quran-based argument as nothing more than a greedy grab for money and power. The political strategy here was pretty clear, right? The goal was to draw a line in the sand. You had the prophet's family. They could be respected as spiritual figures, sure, but political power running the state, that would belong only to the new leadership. It was a move designed to completely isolate them from any real authority.
And the language used in the counter-sermon was, well, it was incredibly harsh. This quote, which we get from historical accounts, basically dismisses her claim as being like a sneaky fox that uses its own tail as its witness. It's a direct accusation of being dishonest and trying to stir up trouble.
After this very public and very harsh clash, Fatima's protest took on a new form. She withdrew from the public sphere, and her final and perhaps most powerful act of dissent was her reported request to be buried at night in secret, so that the people she was in conflict with couldn't be at her funeral.
And this brings us right back to where we started. Why does a dispute over an orchard still resonate so deeply today? Well, because the legacy of what happened goes so far beyond that piece of land.
The sermon itself became this foundational text on speaking truth to power. It's remembered as this incredible defense of the Quran's authority over any political convenience, and it's become a symbol of principled protest against injustice, even when it feels like you're standing all alone.
And when you look at it all, you realize the true inheritance at stake was never the orchard. It was about who got to define the prophet's legacy, the ultimate authority of the Quran, and the very character of the leadership that would steer the community into its future.
And that leaves us with one last thought to chew on. The story of Fadak is a powerful reminder that sometimes a fight that looks like it's about something tangible, like land or money, is actually a battle over core principles. And it really makes you wonder, what are the foundational disputes shaping our own communities today? And are we paying close enough attention to what's really at stake?